So the US Department of Justice has basically just said to Google, show us your hands, because we're going to chop off one of them. Maybe both, but let's start with one.
The DOJ wants Google to have to divest its Chrome browser.
Breaking up the big tech company by having Google sell its popular web browser Chrome and potentially its popular phone product Android.
To get you up to speed, this summer, Google was found by a federal judge to have cheated badly in becoming the world's biggest and best search engine.
A federal judge has found that tech giant Google broke antitrust laws, acting illegally to maintain a monopoly in online search.
We actually did a really deep dive into that case, explaining it from top to bottom. So, with that ruling in hand, the DOJ has now put into writing what price it thinks Google should have to pay for breaking the law. And if it gets its way, it could mean Google would have to sell off, give up control of its Chrome browser. Maybe its Android operating system too. And it would basically have to dismantle and destroy all of the illegal advantages it has created for itself. Everything that helped Google become Google. Let me show you how. By far, the splashiest remedy the DOJ proposes is the spinning off of Google Chrome. Chrome is by far the world's most popular internet browser, and as you can see here, it's just not even close. This is their worldwide market share, according to StatCounter, which is a web analytics company. And Google owning Chrome works wonders for their search engine cash cow, because if I've got my tab open here, and let's say I'm going to search for something, could be anything like leather ottomans, you see this big colorful G right in the search bar. That tells you that you're searching on Google. It's Google by default on Chrome. And that is a powerful position to be in because it feeds into this cycle of people using Google because they didn't really think to do otherwise, which produces mountains of data that Google uses to generate better and better search results, which means more people are going to be perfectly content staying with Google.
The judge in the case found that Google gets as much as 16 times as much data as its next closest rival, which is Microsoft's Bing. And because it has that advantage, it has much better results than everybody else.
The web browser is the access point to anything internet, right? And Google controls what else is being at least promoted as priority on the browser. And that's why they want to actually separate the two.
So here it is, right on page 3, Google must divest Chrome. And then on page 7, right here, Google's near complete control of the most efficient search distribution channels is a major barrier to entry. And the thinking goes, if Google owns the single most efficient distribution channel for its own search engine, how do you compete with that?
There are no search engines that come close to competing with Google in the United States.
So the DOJ says selling Chrome is the solution. And by the way, no sneaky stuff. No making a new browser and then just pulling the same stunt again. Google, says the DOJ, should not be allowed to re-enter the browser market for 5 years. And they shouldn't be allowed to wiggle their way around this by buying up the competition either. Like, imagine if Google bought a stake in Microsoft's Edge and then convinced them to set Google as the default from within the company. The DOJ says Google should be forced to disclose all investments in current or future rivals and divest them too within 6 months.
Preventing Google from entering certain lines of business is a pretty drastic remedy. The US doesn't have monopolization cases that often, so it hasn't imposed this that many times, only a few times in the past.
But the DOJ proposal doesn't end here. This is just scratching the surface because Google's relationship with another tech giant earned special mention in this court filing. We tend to think of Google and Apple as competitors. They make competing smartphones, their operating systems are fiercely competitive with each other. But when it comes to search, this is actually an incredibly lucrative partnership that the DOJ wants to shut down.
The Apple contract is one of Google's most important ones.
Let me explain. Google Search is a big part of how Google makes money. More specifically, it brings in a lot of ad revenue. Revenue which Google is more than happy to share with companies who agree to spread the gospel of Google Search to their users by making Google the default search engine.
if you pull out your iPhone and you type something in to Safari, you get Google results. That has created a situation in which other competitors cannot rival this company.
In 2021, Google handed over $26.3 billion in revenue share, which Google lists as tax or traffic acquisition costs. Apple gets the vast majority of that money. In 2022, an estimated $20 billion. And just to give that number a frame, that amount was almost 1/5 of Apple's entire operating profit for the year. So that's a lot of money, right? And you know Mozilla, they make Firefox. Google gave them about $400 million in 2021 under a similar deal. That was 80% of Mozilla's operating budget. To underline the point, Mozilla, as we know it, would not exist without Google. So whether you're using Firefox or Safari or even talking to Siri.
Hey Siri, how much bubble tea is too much bubble tea to drink in a day?
You're probably using Google search right now because Google pays through the nose to be the default choice.
It is the default in most browsers that you use, in Chrome, in Safari, in Firefox, even in some of the smaller ones like Opera. And it is the default on pretty much every phone in the world.
So here it is in writing. The DOJ proposal prohibits Google from offering Apple, and they actually extend this to other third-party companies as well, offering Apple anything of value for any form of default placement or pre-installation distribution, including choice screens related to general search or a search access point. Quit paying for preferential treatment, basically. And they go even further than that, to basically block any kind of preferential treatment at all, even on Google's own devices. So if you buy a Pixel smartphone, you'd think it would come preloaded with Google Search as an app or a widget. But no, says the DOJ, that wouldn't be allowed.
If Google was forced to abide by the Justice Department's proposals, it would fundamentally change the company and the search industry as we know it. If Google is no longer the one-stop shop that everyone does for searching, its ads are going to be a lot less valuable. And people might start to go to other places, which could significantly impact the company's bottom line.
I should state, the DOJ filing goes even further than what we've outlined. For example, they also say Google should syndicate its search results, effectively handing them over to rival search engines at marginal cost. So imagine DuckDuckGo powered by Google. There's even a requirement that Google fund a nationwide campaign to educate people about this case, effectively tell the world they've been a bad boy, with the possibility of paying individual users as an incentive to use something other than Google. And if none of this works, if all of these things don't succeed in undoing Google's monopoly, then the DOJ says Google should be forced to sell off its Android operating system too. But all of this might be difficult to make stick.
It's not highly likely that all of these will be imposed on Google. The judge has to agree to that. And a lot of people think he's very unlikely to accept, for example, the divestiture of Chrome. But he will probably come up with something that includes several of the proposals that the DOJ has made.
Google, it should go without saying, is fiercely opposed to what the DOJ lays out here. They lost the antitrust case, but they plan to appeal. And in a post by Google's chief legal officer, these remedies would break a range of Google products, even beyond search, that people love and find helpful in their everyday lives. Google is expected to counter with their own set of proposals sometime in December, and the judge in this case is set to decide on the matter next summer.